In this second half of the tutorial, I'll show you guys how I managed to replicate that VHS, VCR, or broken TV effect. I also want to emphasize the importance of just experimenting and having fun, and to gauge how far you can push a certain effect. Next, we're actually going to create the VHS effect, and here's one example of that VHS effect I have. You can see that there are some scan lines, there's some dithering effect, you'll see a displacement map going on, and some effects. And these effects are actually handmade in TV Paint. I actually did them on my own. I'll show you guys those files. Also, the thing with the VHS effect is that it depends how far you want to push it. Do you want to make it a clean look, or do you want to make it messy? And I have an example of another one which is more messy. And here it is. This one has more displacement maps, more of these magnetic stripes things going on. It just looks a lot more chaotic, whereas this one looks a bit more focused. And for this tutorial, we're going to do something that's similar to this, because if you are able to do something like this, then there is a strong chance you'll eventually be able to experiment with how far you can push this effect. Anyways, let's get started. Before we even do the VHS effect in After Effects, I did have to make some hand-painted effects that represent some of those stripes you see in VHS tapes. So these are all hand-painted, and the thing is, I'm gonna export these as a PNG sequence, kind of like what I did with the animation for the characters. So I export this stuff as a PNG sequence, and then I import them, and I could change the color to white or keep it black like they are here. So I made different variations of these. I saved one where it's like this, and I saved another set where it's without that intensity, you just get that grain. And then I've been working on a few other ones where it's just, you know, noise, or sometimes it'll just be stuff that happens to the border. And you'll see how I'll utilize these later on. So like I did with the character animation, you export them as a PNG, alpha channel PNG. So no background, RGBA, and export it to whatever folder, and it'll make multiple files based on how many frames there are. Alright, so once I load up After Effects, I'm going to create a new composition. And you know what, I already have it set here, but I'm using 1280 by 960 pixels, and I'm trying to keep it 4:3 because before HD, before 16 by 9, the standard definition was 4:3, and this was a definition that was used before the jump to HD. It's mostly commonly found in VHS tapes, so we're going to use this ratio. You can use whatever width and height you want. You can use whatever width and height you want, but just make sure the aspect ratio is 4:3. Hit OK, and you're going to create a new window. Next, you're going to start dropping in your other files. We're going to import the cell animation test that we did from the last part of this tutorial. So I'm going to add in our render of the character. the footage. So this is the cell shading test. But next we're actually going to import the VHS effects that we did. So we're going to choose the ones that I made. I'm just going to go for the excessive ones, PNG sequence, make sure this is ticked, import that, it'll import it as its own sequence. I'm also going to import the other ones that I made, such as the mild. So this is a mild version. Alright, let's do that. And I'm going to import the remaining ones, such as unstable borders. We might use this, we're not sure yet. And I'm also going to import the scan line I did, the scan line noise. It's all very blurry. So now we all have this sequence. They're all PNG sequences. But sometimes when you import them, they hit 30 frames. That's the default. You might need to change that. I'm going to set it to loop, let's say 20 times, and I'm going to force it back to 24, like I had it. So interpret it. This sometimes happens when you import them into export them into PNG sequences. They turn them into 30 FPS. So I'm just gonna fix this all. Switch them back to 24. Make it loop longer because they're only 13 frames, so they need to loop longer. 24 and 20 times. All right. So I'm just gonna save this quickly. Let's just call this VHS dance tutorial. Alright, save. And I am going to first put in my animation that I did for the two girls, the cell tutorial. And I'm just going to adjust it, make sure it fits properly in the 4x3. And I'm going to just shrink down the render or the preview. And if we preview it, I'm just trying to make sure that it fits properly. This is what it looks like in the 4x3 ratio. Alright, so before we actually start doing anything, I want to pre-compose this because we might add some effects on top of this whole image. So I'm just going to call this post cell. And now this is where we can start adding in the effects, the VHS effects. So here's where the fun begins. We're actually going to make some VHS looking effects now. I'm going to select my Magstripe Excessive. I'm going to slap it down. And I'm going to just preview how it looks when played. Now, I don't want this black. I actually want it white or gray, kind of like what you'd sometimes see in a VHS tape. So what you could do is you go to Effect, Color Correction. I won't go to Brightness and Contrast. I'll actually go to Hue and Saturation, and I'll bump the lightness to something gray. I'm going to right-click on the Magstripe, go to Layer Styles, and drop the shadow. So you have this pretty sharp shadow. And I'm going to remove the size, so when I add distance, it creates a more bold looking, it just adds more texture to it. You could also add a stroke to it, so Layer Styles, Stroke. I'm going to change the color of the stroke to, let's say, black. And I'm going to just shrink the size to 1 pixel or less. Maybe turn on the opacity. So let's go with that for now. Alright, so if we actually preview what we have, we're nearly there, but we need to add some of that distortion effect that gives it that imperfection. So I'm actually going to go back and select the excessive Magstripe, but instead of turning it into a different color or adding an effect, we're going to change it into an adjustment layer. So this means that if I turn it to an adjustment layer, and if I add effects, it'll be invisible, but if I add effects, it'll actually affect everything that's underneath this Magstripe. So let's say if I go to brightness and contrast and turn on the brightness, it's actually turning the brightness of the image below. But for this case, we actually want to distort it. So go to distort, and we're going to choose something like displacement map. And as you can see, it's already starting to distort something. So I'm just going to bump this up to maybe 60, 75. And if we preview it, you can already see some of that distortion going on. Maybe this isn't the right option for it. We actually want it more bolder. So I'm going to go for half maybe. Let's see, half. And if we check it out, now it starts to feel a bit less perfect, which is great, which is what I need. I could, if I want to, I could actually turn the brightness on at the same time or lower the brightness. So you give it that inconsistency. The rest of this tutorial is basically just me experimenting with this stuff. So for now, this is how you create that VHS look, but we're going to even sell that illusion even more that this comes from a VHS tape. So you know what, let's try actually having another of these displacement map stripes. I'm actually going to remove the brightness and contrast. I'm probably going to play around with this effect. And I'm going to have it scroll up and down, or just have it scroll down really fast, so it feels like it's all analog. It's coming from a tape. I'm going to just have it last for maybe 3 seconds and move it down. So if we were to preview it, you'll see that effect go down for 2 seconds. I think this thing is a bit too distracting. The first Magstripe that we did, and you could either turn off some effects, some effects that might be distracting it too much. Maybe turn down the opacity of some of it, or turn down the opacity for the whole thing. So you go to transform and turn the opacity down for that. That could help too. if it doesn't look right to you, always feel free to play around with it. Like, select some of the previous displacement maps that you made and maybe have some other effects that go with it. Like, maybe blur it a bit. It's all up to you. I actually had way too much time and fun experimenting with this effect, so you guys could see that I've been either adding more effects or removing effects. Depending on how far I want to take it, I could either make it really exaggerated and really overkill, or take out a few and make sure that it doesn't look too distracting. So again, this whole area, you can experiment with how far you want to push it. But you know what? Let's move forward. I do need to do something about the image. And to really sell that VHS effect, I want to offset the image from time to time. So instead of it being stable at this overall feeling where the characters stay in one place, or the background stays in one place, we can offset it. So if we go to Distort, this is while selecting the actual animation, the pre-composed animation. You go to Offset, you go to Distort, and you go to Offset. And what Offset does is you can offset the animation to either left or right, or you can actually figure out where the axis is. Alright, so I'm actually going to animate this. I'm going to turn the stopwatch on. I'm going to make sure I can see the keys, and I'm going to just select random parts where I move it maybe up, then down, or up again, or down, and then back up. And I could have a moment where it just does a really quick up. And if I play it, it'll feel less stable, just to sell that really bad VHS effect. But it's probably too choppy, and we want to smoothen it. So if we select all our keys, we right click and we go to keyframe assistant, hit easy ease, and when we play it, it eases into the next key without having that weird choppiness. It goes by really smoothly. Again, I might be overkilling it, but the offset can help you sell that illusion even more. That's probably way overkill now that I think about it. I'm gonna turn this one off. Oops. I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna play it again. We just want a bit, not too much. Let's just stick with that for now. We can always change it if we feel like it. I think there was another effect that I wanted to add. Unstable border. So this is the border that I made. Either I can turn this into adjustment layer or not, but I feel like because I have so many adjustment layers, I'm probably just going to turn this into a blend mode. So maybe a color burn will do, or classic color burn, or color burn. Maybe classic color burn. So we have that nice dark round edges. I'm going to size it up a bit and just have it loop. And yeah, we can see some really weird imperfections in this VHS tape. Maybe we could add another blend mode to it. So we go to drop shadows, stroke, and instead of red as its default color, I'm going to turn it white. And I'm probably going to turn down it to 1 pixel and turn down the opacity. Maybe I can change the blend mode again to a vivid light, or color burn will do for now. And we can just play it. So again, really bad VHS quality. Maybe we can set it to overlay so it's not too, or soft light. Soft light's more subtle, so it's not too distracting. Alright, so at this point I do feel like we're overkilling the effect. Anyways, now we're gonna start editing the image. So I want to show you two ways on how you can make this image look less clear. What you could do is select the actual animation or the pre-composite of that animation, duplicate it, so you have two, set this one to color, and blur it. So when you blur it, it feels more muddy. And this could already be your VHS effect. This could be it here. Or you could have color set and just tilt it a bit so you have that nice color abbreviation. So that's another way to do it, just to sell that illusion of that VHS feeling even more. But you know what? I actually want to have other effects, you know? Maybe I want to have more controls of each color channel. So if we play this right now, this could pass. This could be it. For now, I'm going to hide this. And I'm going to actually set to different channels like I did with the cell demo. So you select your animation, go to Effect, you go to Channel, and you set the channels. And you're going to make 3 of these. So for each of them, turn off each of these. Off, off. Actually, I'm going to hide so I can only see the below one. I'm going to keep blue to blue. Now it's time for the other one. Let's turn off red, green leave on, blue leave off. And then the same thing. Now red. So red, and then everything else is off. And then this is off too. So if we turn off or see each channel individually, they're actually channels of blue, green, and red. And if we select it all and we change it to, let's say, add for light, it becomes normal. Now what I could do is shift one to the left. Like let's say if I select one channel, I could shift it around. Or I could select one of those channels and I could blur it. Or maybe that's weird. Maybe by 2 pixels or 3. And then shift it to give it that weird, really retro look. Another way you could do it is you just select one of these and you tilt one of them to, you press the right arrow key, tilt them to the right, and maybe you just switch it so instead of the green source to be green, it'll read blue as a green source, and you'll get these really nice, weird experimentations. You can even go to color channel, hue and saturation, and turn it down. So yeah, it's all up to you. You can figure this out. You can figure this stuff out on your own. I feel like we need to, set a fixed color for these. So on top of all these animation cells, you go to New, you go to Adjustment Layer, and I'm going to move these adjustment layers below all the Magstripes, below all the VHS overlays, and I'm going to probably tritone it. So color channel, and I'm going to tritone it. And I could make the colors to my liking, to a tritone. So I'm probably going to select these batch of colors, maybe yellow, and then I'm going to make it blend a bit with the original, so it doesn't feel like it's the same. It's super clear. You could even add other effects such as contrast, brightness. Again, it's all up to you. What I like to do sometimes is I go to curves, maybe play around with the curves, what fits best for this effect, maybe amp up some of the secondary colors, maybe change some of the curves for the values, and then just play around with it until you get a desired effect. And then at the same time, shift some of these cells around or these color channels around. That's probably way too unclear. Anyways, that's about it. We're nearly done, but I think we need to have that VHS text on top of it. Now I realized that I had a hidden layer of the color effect that I did earlier, so it's still there. You know what? Maybe I could just blur it. Maybe I could just add a bit more blur. Bloop. So we give it more of that weird imperfection. Now for the final touches. We need to sell that VHS look finally. So most VHS tapes always have that text overlay where it says play. And I'm using the font VCR OSD Mono. You can actually find it online for free. I actually got this online for free, so I'll provide the link down below, or I'll provide it along with the package. So you just click anywhere and you write dialog play. And I'm just going to adjust the size. And if I want to, because some of them have this, is a drop shadow, or let's say a stroke. Let's just do a stroke. So I'm going to do a stroke. And I'm going to set it to black as usual. And let's leave it as that. So it's play mode, play. And then we could add... I just duplicated it, by the way, so I clicked on play, Control D, shift it down, and let's add a mock date. So sometimes there'll be a date. I'm going to mark in March 9, 1990. Or maybe 1989, or whatever fits best for you. I'm gonna put 1992 for that case. I'm gonna make this bigger. Whoop! Come on now. There we go. Or maybe that's a bit too big. You know what, maybe that's perfect. And maybe the stroke probably isn't the right idea, so you can always take it out. Take it out here too. So when I play it, now it looks more legit. Now it looks more like the authentic VCR footage. Finally, if we want to sell it even more, you could go to this adjustment layer. So the adjustment layer under the overlays that we placed, go to effect, noise, add grain. Make sure it's in final output, and make sure it's colored. Maybe make the size bigger, and the softness. Like, play around with it. What fits best for the effect that you want to sell. Maybe not too intense. Okay. Let's save it. Yeah, save it, and then we play it. And because it's using noise, it's probably going to take a while to load. So after some fine tuning and elimination of some other effects I already had, I had to disable curves, I had to remove some noise, I had to remove some displacement maps. If I were to play it now I got a more desired, more focused VHS effect that I really wanted. So there you have it. Here's the VHS effect that you can do, that I tried doing or implementing in this test. You guys can decide how intense you want the effect to be or how subdued you want it to be. But all in all, now I just showed you that you guys, it's all a matter of just experimenting and playing around with the effect overall. Playing around with the tools, the text, some of the noise. It's all, again, it's completely in your hands. Anyways, that's how I would do the VHS effect. And I hope to see what you guys come out with. Be sure to tag me on Twitter and show me what you guys have done. Anyways, thank you so much. The following tutorial has a Plus edition on Gumroad, which you can purchase on my Gumroad website. Buying the Plus edition gives you an exclusive video only available through purchase that summarizes my process on how I animated the characters dancing and how I usually approach my workflow, such as roughing it out, cleanup, and then coloring. You'll also gain access to the After Effects projects files, the TV Paint character animation files, along with its PNG sequences. Speaking of PNG sequences, the package also provides handmade VHS and film grain overlays that you can use on your own projects. No extra charge, it's all yours after you buy it. If any of that interests you, I'll provide the link down below to the Gumroad page.